They were incredible.
Assessing the fact that he had lost consciousness, the fact that he says that he lost a pulse, okay, and started CPR. That is what saves lives. So anybody listening to this show, if someone in your household drops to the floor, that's the first thing you want to do. You want to assess that pulse. You want to assess their breathing, and you want to administer CPR ASAP. That's what saves lives. In the military, we used to call it the golden hour. Now we're calling it the golden 10 minutes. We need to get those timelines down even further to save lives. And the fact that you had medical professionals on the field right there within the first minute, that's what saved this guy's life.
We had a little bit of a technical difficulty there, Chris, at the beginning of the show. So I'm just, I hate to do this, but we're going to basically going to start all over here and go back to the beginning.
Okay.
I think the people on our app heard the discussion, but the people that are watching on Twitter and YouTube did not. So we'll just go back to the beginning. Damar Hamlin, as many of you already know, a cardiac arrest on the field last night. And at this point, we know that he is in critical condition, and that's the only update we've had since 1:49 last night. There's not a lot of information that's getting out right now. But again, Chris, just from your learned eye, what you saw it this morning, you saw the replay. What does it tell you about the injury that you've experienced in the past, maybe, or from your knowledge?
That this was a delayed response. This was something where he tackled, was on the ground for a few seconds, then stands up for a second or so, and then collapses. It's unusual to have that cardiac arrest from a conduction issue from the heart conduction, from the electricity that goes in the heart. I do down because that's how the conduction goes. It goes down to the ventricles. That's usually instantaneous process. We've seen it before in baseball, players getting hit with in the chest with a baseball. It just happens to be that split second during that conduction cycle in which that happens, where there's a little fragile little window if something does happen. But think about all the thousands and thousands and thousands of tackles that happen each year. It rarely happens, right? So it's not something that's very common. That's why I think this might be something else and not that conduction thing that a lot of people are talking about that I was listening to on the news this morning. I think it's going to be something different. I think it's going to be like an Inky Johnson. He might have tore something, some kind of artery got torn, in which where you get that little delayed collapse. But it could be a multitude of things, really and truly.
But I think that was kind of the narrative that was going around, that it was the impact that stopped the heart. You mentioned the medical term for that. And to you, since he got up and then fell back over, it's got to be something different.
I think it's something different. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
not a normal thing. When someone's heart stops,
you're done.
They're dead. They don't do anything. And I've taken care of lots of patients whose heart stopped and starts. It's an on-off switch. No joke. It's like the light switch thing behind me. It's literally an on-off thing. You don't get that split second delay with some people. But he's got epinephrine on board and adrenaline, and that's gonna no. The heart overrides all that stuff. So that's why I'm thinking it's something different.
So it's not the electrical impact. It's something it stands up and that Inky Johnson thing. I think tell people a little bit more about that, because I actually watched the video on it this morning, and I don't want to try to replicate the terms that were in it, especially when I have you here. So explain to the folks what happened in that situation. And good to know that Inky Johnson is alive today. He has a paralyzed arm. He's a motivational speaker. So if we have any good news this morning, is if this can go the way of Inky Johnson, Lord help us. Thank you. Yes. And save this young man's life. So tell us about that. And there's reason for hope here.
Yeah, definitely. The fact that he's still alive, he's young, he's healthy. There's a reason why he's still alive. The reason why he's alive, because the fact that he got administered CPR immediately is the reason why he's alive. So a multitude of things is the reason why he's alive. The Inky Johnson, when I saw the hit though, and I saw the delayed in which everything happened and where he collapses, that first thing I thought was Inky Johnson, because when he got hit out of bounds, he did this very similar thing. He hit, and it wasn't like a crazy hit. You've seen some crazy hits in hockey. We've seen some crazy hits in baseball, and outfielders coming together or colliding baseball runners and players. This was nothing out of the ordinary. When you see that hit, you're like, and I heard someone on the radio this morning talking about, oh my God, stop watching the video. I'm like, the video's not gruesome. Joey Theismann, little Joey Theismann's
Yeah.
compound fracture of his leg back in the day in the Redskins, that was a gruesome sight. We've seen some basketball players. Yeah, basketball players. That's a gruesome sight. This video, there's nothing gruesome about that hit, and there's nothing crazy about that. You're like, oh my God, that I could see that happening. No, this is like really weird, the fact that it happened.
No, I thought he knocked himself out. He stood up for a second and then he fell over. And the way he fell was a little weird too, because he was out. I mean, it was not one of those struggling to stay on balance things. He got up and then he just went down.
Yeah. So, and that's why I think he tore some kind of artery, because usually that's what happens. Usually you'll get that delayed response, and then all of a sudden the blood volume starts to drop, and that blood pressure, when the blood pressure goes down, all that vasal tone, we call it, that drops, and that's when you pass out, quote unquote.
So if it is something, and again, it's hopeful that Inky Johnson recovered from a ruptured aorta. How do they stop the bleeding? What happens? What goes on?
So it depends on what kind of tear it's at, where the tear is at. Sorry about that. It depends on where the tear is at, what kind of tear it is. Some tears in the aorta that you will actually watch and you will not surgically repair them, type A's and type B's tears. And then some tears, you got to surgically go in there and repair that tear. Okay, so I think they talked about this morning that he is actually still in a coma, as they call it. He's sedated. That means he's intubated on a ventilator machine. A machine is breathing for him at this point in time. He's getting sedation to keep him comfortable at this point in time too.
Well, that is, it's not a great situation, but hopefully, he can come through this, and I'm sure the surgeons are working through the night to do whatever they can. There's so many people that want to, talk about the how dangerous the NFL is. And fact of the matter is, I think we've had one player die on the field back in 1968. I think it happened. So it's, there's no way to legislate this, right? I mean, it's a collision sport. They're getting bigger, faster, stronger. I get all that, but and I know the league is trying to do the best they can to take the CTE out of the game and the head trauma, but from a medical standpoint, I mean, doctors must look at this game and say, look, it's a brutal game, and these things are going to happen from time to time. But do you think that this is something that's going to be more prevalent, this type of thing moving forward? It's just a freak accident.
It's a freak accident. My son plays lacrosse. That's a brutal sport. Those kids hit each other like they're going out of style. Hockey is a brutal sport. Football is pretty brutal too, but the fact that these guys have downtime in between each play, they can recover a little bit. And the fact that they're watching that for that CTE this day and age, it's a huge thing. That's on everyone's mind. I think the brain injuries are more common issue than this incident. This is a freak of nature. Someone's going to win the lottery here in the next week or two. It's a freak of nature to win the lottery. It's a freak of nature for this to happen too.
I think the good news, though, is the way the NFL handled it from a medical standpoint. We'll talk about the other stuff in a little bit, but from a medical standpoint, having all those people there and trained to do what they did, they did it perfectly, did they not?
They did.
Peers, yeah.
The fact that he's still alive right now,
is
the reason is because of that staff.
Yeah,
phenomenal job.
All right, Chris, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and your expertise in this. I know you got patience today, so thanks for shedding a little light on what happened today. I think that's very, very critical information. Appreciate that.
No worries. Thanks, JP. Talk to you guys later.
Thanks. It's Chris Logo from Bay Area Modern Medical Center, BAMMC.com. So it is a very, very tough time for the NFL. And in much, there's a lot of people are going to talk about the way things were handled last night. I think first and foremost, we have to talk about the young man, Damar Hamlin, and played at Pittsburgh. It's a 6th-round draft choice. His mother was in the stands, and I can't even imagine what it's like for a mother or a family member to watch something like this happen. And it's scary stuff. And I'm not here to say that there's any perfect way to handle this. But there's so much to be made of the NFL and player safety. And there will be conversations talking about how it was handled last night. And me personally, and watching it in real time, I thought the broadcasters handled it with great sincerity, great compassion. Booger McFarland was on last night in the studio, and I thought he really handled it in a tremendously classy and compassionate and authentic way. And you could really feel as a former player what he was going through. And just talking about, how you can't think about football in this particular moment at all. You can't think about playing the game in this particular moment at all. Just by the reactions of the players, you could tell that they were not going to play football tonight, nor should they play football. And the fact that there was any inclination whatsoever or anything had to be talked about in this incident as to possibly continuing to play football is lunacy, in my opinion. Now, I completely understand that it was a developing situation and an emerging situation, and unprecedented in some ways. I mean, as we mentioned earlier, players go down on the field all the time. Then there is the next level of severity where, okay, this player has lost consciousness. So now players are really, really worried. Then there's the moment of, okay, can he move his extremities? Is this a paralysis? Because we've seen players paralyzed because of these hits. Okay, so, we've come to the fact that, it's not, now this is not a paralysis situation. This is a life and death situation. Everybody could see on the field, and you could even see a little bit on television, that this was a critical life-saving operation that was going on. This was a situation where the defibrillator was going to be used. CPR is being used, and this is different than other situations. No question about it. And anybody in any official capacity in the NFL could notice this, in a moment's notice. Now, at some point, it was relayed to the booth. And, Joe Buck did not just bring this out of thin air. At some time, it was relayed to the booth that there was going to be a 5-minute warm-up period, which just, again, boggles my mind. Okay, guys, we want to make sure you're warmed up so you don't pull a hamstring here after one of your teammates may have died on the field. I mean, just think about that mentality for a second. So whoever came up with that idea, it certainly wasn't Joe Buck. And it had to go through about 3 or 4 different gatekeepers to get to the booth. Okay, so let's not, as Troy Vincent said in an interview, at no point were we ever thinking about playing this game, and there was never any 5-minute warm-up period given as a protocol or instructions to officials. We don't know if that's true or not. I don't have proof of that. All I know is that it was relayed to the booth, and Joe Buck said it 4 or 5 times. Joe Buck is not going to just, pull that out of his rear end. And I would doubt very seriously if a producer went through the protocol book and said, okay, this is what the protocol normally is, so let's go ahead and announce it now that this is what's going to happen. That didn't happen either. Okay, this had to go through gatekeepers. Okay, it had to go to a producer, first of all, someone, even if it's an official on the field who is saying, okay, the normal protocol is we do 5 minutes. That official works for the league. Okay, works for the league. So that is in proxy, the league saying there's going to be a 5-minute warm-up period. Okay. Now, is there an official, the head referee, going to make that call on his own in this situation? Hell no. Hell no. So I can tell you the protocol in this situation is that a league official has to make that call. Okay. So in some way, the NFL, whether it was the referee and by proxy the league, whether it was somebody in New York, and we don't know this, but to my guess, somebody up high certainly has to get in this situation. I mean, it's not like there's 25 football games going on. It's the only one going on. And where the hell is Roger Goodell? It's been how many hours? Where the hell is Roger Goodell on this? Since I started the show, I don't know if he's done a press conference or close to the start of the show, but I haven't seen any Roger Goodell or heard from him. You make $50 million a year. Perhaps you should be present in this moment. Somewhere, some way, there was thought that this game is in some way going to continue. And obviously the coaches were told this, and they were like, you could just see it. Like, they were like, what? And then the coaches came back together in the middle of the field and talked to each other. And then later we saw some footage of them underneath the stadium with a league official there passing the phone back and forth to somebody. And still at this point, this game was under suspension and not postponed. And not till 10 o'clock did we get the official postponement of the game. So in my mind, somebody there screwed up. And there was not a whole lot of compassion towards these players that had just witnessed something horrific. And obviously, when that phone was passed around, those two coaches said, no, we're not playing the football game. Like, what do I need to tell you that? But okay, talk to the two coaches. That's good due diligence. You need to do that just to confirm what you already know, that this game should be postponed immediately. And that's what eventually happened. The game has been postponed. And it's, I know it's hard to say what's next, when we don't know what's going on with Damar, but, the world unfortunately has to continue. And the good news is he is at this moment still in critical condition and in the best of life-saving hands. And I think it's great that, as Chris Lugo mentioned, the Inky Johnson situation where he got basically a helmet to the collarbone area here. And there's an artery that runs under your collarbone that goes down your arm. And that artery was severed. So obviously Inky Johnson had all this internal bleeding going on. And, when you get to that point, it's got to get them to the hospital and do whatever life-saving surgeries have to be done. So, hopefully Damar will pull through, and it will be a time where we can reflect back on this and say it was, as Chris said, this is just a freak accident. It doesn't happen, or we'll find out something more that's going on here. And hopefully we pray that there will be honest about what happened here, and everyone will know, so that the parents who have kids that play football will know what happened and what to guard against. And the reason we do autopsies, and the reason we do, we go over what happened to Inky Johnson, whose life was saved and is now a motivational speaker, as I mentioned. The reason we do all this post-analysis is so we don't make the same mistakes later on down the line, or we can somehow learn something from it that will keep this from happening again. So it's important. It's very important to get honest evidence and get the truth of what really happened here today, so that when we move forward, we can do so in an informed and intelligent manner to make sure it doesn't happen again to another player and another family. And that's what's important about getting to the truth. So we need to talk about where we go from here. And the bottom line is, this season will go on. This NFL season will go on. Whatever happens here. And that's just, it's part of life, unfortunately. And again, I don't want to speak in terms of Damar having passed away. He has not. He's very much alive, and he's very much, from what we know at this point, which was many, many hours ago, by the way. There has been no update in his condition, which I think is also somewhat problematic. But, hopefully he's still in stable condition. I shouldn't say stable, but critical condition. But he's in good hands. He's in very good hands. There's no better place he could be, quite frankly, than UC Medical Center, one of the best in the world. So, level 1 trauma center, and he was taken there very quickly. So, again, I don't think this is a situation where, there's going to be major upheaval in the league in terms of what we can and can't do, or a rule change here and there. There's nothing about that play that was abnormal. The hit, the lowering of the head, or anything. It just happened. It was a freak accident. So hopefully Damar will be okay. Now, in terms of where does the league go from here? And this is just me consuming as much information as I've been able to consume this morning on ESPN and other channels, that the league is not commenting right now. They're not speaking to any type of proposals or anything anything that they can say this is how we're going to move forward. There's really no precedent for this, except the fact that during COVID there were games rescheduled on Tuesdays and Wednesdays and Thursdays and Fridays and everything in order to get the games in, right? Because there's I hate to say it, but there's millions and millions and hundreds of millions and billions of dollars that rely on this league continuing. So it's going to continue. And here's from my thought basis, this is about the only thing that I think would work, given the circumstances. And I think it also does kind of depend on what the outcome is here, frankly. But I don't think there's any way you could ask the Bills or the Bengals to play this game again this week. I just don't think that's humanly possible, especially when they have a game week 18. All these games are critical to the seeding, and I know none of this is matters in the least bit as far as vis-a-vis Damar Hamlin. None of it matters. But again, the league is going to go on, and we have to figure out what's going to happen. For me, I think the league should take the week before the Super Bowl and just wipe it out. That off week before the Super Bowl, we've done this before. The Bucs won their first Super Bowl with just a week off between the championship game and the Super Bowl. It can be done. The reason they have the full week is more for the teams and marketing and everything else to hype up the game than anything else. So we could do without the extra week in this situation. And I would play that game the week after the season. So inevitably an off week for everyone, a week 19, if you will, and let them play that game on Sunday, Saturday, wherever they feel it's in. That would be somewhat 2 weeks removed from this particular incident. And hopefully, by that time we know Damar is alive and well, or at least alive and recovering. So that can certainly put the players at ease. And I think within 2 weeks, we should probably know that, right? Within a week or so. So the players can be at ease and know what the future holds, or if something tragic happens, they will have time to have dealt with it from a coping standpoint and a grieving standpoint. And then we start up the playoffs the next week and everything goes as normally planned. You just missed that week before the Super Bowl. To me, that seems like the most humane and compassionate way to handle this. There may be some other ideas. I don't know what they are, but I think anything that involves these two teams having played this week and then play another game next week is patently ridiculous, and shows zero compassion for the teams, for the players, for the family, at all. So to me, this would be the best way to handle it, a really, really bad situation. So we'll see how the league handles it. But at this point, they are making no comments whatsoever. They are are saying very little about what's going to happen next. And I guess that's appropriately slow at this particular time. And I will say this, because it does bug the hell out of me, that the whole 5-minute warm-up thing and the fact that the league took so long to postpone the game, and now the fact that they're walking it back and saying they didn't. Look, if somebody made a call last night, some junior or who executive or something made a call to do the 5-minute warm-up, or somebody made that call and not really understanding what the situation was, I think we can all understand that people make mistakes. I would much rather the league say, you know what, we didn't realize the severity of the situation. We probably should have. We screwed up. But somebody, gave the order for the 5-minute warm up and to resume the game, and we should not have done that. That was a mistake. I wish they would just do that instead of doing what it looks like now, this complete cover up of, well, we were never, trotting Troy Vincent out there to say that and whatnot. Because that, we need a little bit more explanation on what was going on there. Okay. And because the explanations that are coming out now really don't make a whole lot of sense. And I know this doesn't mean a whole lot vis-a-vis to where Damar is right now, but these are conversations that are going to be had and are being had, frankly, on social media and all the different shows. So the way that this was handled will be scrutinized as well. And I realize there's no perfect way to handle it. I was a little unnerved, frankly, that they kept breaking away and still trying to sell me cars and ED medicine. That seemed a little bit disingenuous. Perhaps I would have liked them to do more reporting in the moment with everybody that they had there on site. Let's get some more explanations as to what's going on. Let's get more information. I thought and just going, throwing it to Booger and all these people to, give their compassionate speeches was great in the beginning. And I thought they did a tremendous job, all the broadcasters. But after a while, it's like, okay, can we get some news? You're there on the ground. Let us know what's happening. Tell us more about Damar. Tell us more about the situation. Tell us more about what's happened. It's almost like people are afraid to say anything, thinking that what they're saying is going to be wrong. But we're gonna put the broadcasters out there to have to do this. But can we do some reporting? Ask some questions. What's going on? Thought there was a little bit of a lack of information going on here. Like, we can't tell you everything, and it just, in the current climate of news censorship and everything else, and distrust of the media and all institutions, a little bit of transparency here, it would be greatly appreciated in any and all of these situations. And it's like, the first card that the league goes to and everybody else goes to is, let's control the information. Let's keep everything secret as long as we can. And I'm not sure that's the best idea. Obviously, you don't want information out there before the family gets it. But the family was on site. They were certainly getting information in real time, at least the immediate family that was on site. So, again, I know it's very hard to handle this situation. It's much easier to quarterback it, in hindsight. I get it. But I just think, these are highly professional organizations here, ESPN, the NFL and everything else. And sometimes I feel like the focus is more on controlling the information and keeping things secret than it is on responsibly disseminating the information to the people, which, there are a lot of concerned people in this particular instance, obviously. So, you can have your thoughts on that as well. And we've certainly read plenty of it on Twitter. So it's a very, very unsettling situation. There's no question about that. We are going to try to make sense of it as we go through the day today. But we're also going to be talking about the Buccaneers and what's happening with them as well, because unfortunately we have to move on, and the world will move on. So again, I'm going to hit the private chat here and see if you guys unfortunately, I think some of our technology is not working today, so we'll have to do the best we can as we get through this. My producer Nick is on another assignment right now, so we're going to have to deal with some of this in a technologically. Oh, here we go. Now I've got some of your comments up, so we'll put them up as we go. Jordan Gamillion says, though the announcers and ESPN studio analysts handled it with class, I can say with writer certainty, seeing so many sportsbook apps commercials during sure makes me think one thing was on the NFL's mind, and that was revenue. Yeah, I mean, I don't, again, in hindsight, we can make these calls, but I'll say this. I think it would have been a pretty easy call to stop, trying to sell me cars, ED medicine, and gambling apps. I mean, can we give it a break for a little bit? And here, this is the cold, hard reality of this. There's a network executive somewhere going, well, this game's probably going to be suspended, so let's get in as many breaks as we can. Otherwise, we're going to have to do make goods, in the millions of dollars. Because the audience for this was, I haven't seen the numbers, but, this game was probably going to be one of the highest rated Monday Night Football games of the year. I mean, because of the fact that it was the Bills and the Bengals, and the highest combined win total for any Monday Night Football game in the history of Monday Night Football. Two teams that are Super Bowl favorites are likely, be in the AFC Championship game. So it was a huge, huge audience, and those ads were not cheap. And if they don't run those ads, they have to do make goods at some point. So yeah, there's probably a lot of people thinking about it. As Jordan says, they continue commercial break after commercial break, and ESPN was still trying to get as much money as possible. And it was disgusting. They valued that over cutting to a rerun of something. Absolutely. I 100% agree. I'm glad I wasn't the only one thinking this. Profits over people, says Mario Christian. Yeah, I 1000% agree. Jordan also says, while one of their members of the league was fighting for his life. They cared about one thing, and that was the ad revenue for the biggest Monday Night Football game of the year. Prayers to the family. Jordan, we're on the same page, brother. We're on the same page. So I saw tweets that players were blasting Skip Bayless last night. Yes. Skip is in the process of being canceled today and last night. And I kind of read what he said, and it's probably been deleted, but so I'll try to get this up as we are doing this live. No, that's not the one. As I recall, it was not good. I'm trying to do this live on the air, so I apologize. Yeah, I'll try to. I don't want to say the wrong thing, but his comments were pretty damn insensitive. That was this week. Oh, this morning. Wow. So this is from a video mixtape. With papers shaking in his hand, Skip Bayless does not apologize for his tweet he sent as Damar Hamlin fights for his life after going into cardiac arrest after making a football tackle. Co-host Shannon Sharp is a no-show for Undisputed this morning. Wow. Shannon Sharp didn't even show up this morning. That's interesting. Okay, I will try to get this. I will effort this particular conversation here, and we'll get that to you. So Skip does. I mean, they had a blowout last week. He and Shannon Sharp. So I'm wondering what exactly is going on there. So we'll get to that as best we can. Mario Christian saying, a lot of players are calling for Skip's job. Well, that's not unusual, but I think it's probably worse than normal. I'll get to that tweet and what the ramifications were too. And in points like this, it's tough. I hate the whole cancel culture in general. People say what they say. You hold them accountable. I usually don't like them losing their jobs. Sometimes it does reach that level. If they do it continually, I think certainly, and a pattern is established, maybe that's a better reason for people to lose their jobs or get canceled. But, saying one thing here, one thing there, I'm not a big fan of that. So I was going to try to take a break here. I'm waiting for my producer's return, which was not going to happen. So we'll just continue for a little bit longer. If you guys want to jump in here on the conversation, feel free. Here, Mark Davis has offered up a solution as well. Call the game a tie. I certainly don't have a problem with that. I was texting with somebody last night. It was like, are they going to make the Bills forfeit this game if their coach doesn't want to play? I'm like, no, you're not. You're not going to punish a team for not playing in this situation. You can't do that. That would be the most cruel thing to possibly ever do. And there was someone else that brought up the Christian Eriksen situation. I believe it was a World Cup qualifier, and he collapsed and died on the field, cardiac arrest, and they revived him. And they actually played that game that night. But I think it was also known, fairly certain afterwards, that they did restart his heart and he was conscious and awake when they played that game. I'm not sure. That's off the top of my head, but I think even if that's the case, playing that game that night was just ridiculous. But I'm not exactly sure of the logistical situations, but I think, from a standpoint of, this is a little bit insensitive and not very compassionate to the other players after something like that just happened. So, Jordan Gamillion says it'll be no contest if Chiefs get the 1 seed. It may not matter much. Yeah, because I believe they have the insight, right? And this is why, I think the protocol be that let's wait to see if this game even means something, right? And if it means something in seeding, And for the most part, I don't think it could be if Kansas City wins out. I'm pretty sure that they have the number 1 seed, right? So, so yeah, and so if something were to happen and they didn't, and if this game turns out to be meaningless, or it's just a matter of seeding, 2 and 3, which is not that big of a difference. I mean, it could come down to it, who gets a home game, who doesn't, but it also could not. So if there's a way where you don't have to play this game and it becomes a meaningless game, by all means do that. And if you schedule it for, say, a week 19 and you take away the Super Bowl off week, then you can determine that. And if it's determined right after the week 18 that it's not going to really matter that much, then you can just go ahead. But if it does matter for the number, because the number 1 seed really, really matters. The number 1 seed really, really, not in terms of Damar, obviously, but it's, let's just be honest about this. If Damar were to recover, and God, hopefully he will, and we move on, then, yes, it's a big deal. So yeah, I think that's a pretty good situation there. If you don't have to play the game, don't play the game. If it's meaningless, don't play the game, and you could let it go. Wait, let's see what happens week 18 and go from there. It's going to be hard enough for these players to play this week. I mean, we're not even talking about that. I mean, what if, God forbid, Damar doesn't make it? Are we still going to ask the Bengals and the Bills to play this week? It's a lot. It's a lot. It's really a lot. Maybe you just delay this whole week. Make this the Super Bowl week. Just push everything out. I don't know. There's no really good solutions to something like this. Let's just hope, for to God's sakes, that he pulls through. And we're not talking about a life and death situation here. Joe F says, Skip's tweet, no doubt the NFL is considering postponing the rest of the game, but how this late in the season, a game of this magnitude is crucial to the regular season outcome, which suddenly seems so irrelevant. Yeah, it's a little bit of, you're saying the game's important, then you're saying it's irrelevant. So I think you're stating the obvious in both cases there. So, it wasn't smart to be sure. No doubt the NFL is considering postponing the rest of the game. How this is like season. So he's openly questioning, should we be playing this game? And there's no question. No, you shouldn't be playing this game. But he also mentions that, it's irrelevant. So it's kind of talking out of the sides of your mouth right there. All right. Well, Nick Geddes has rejoined me here. Love to get your take on this, my friend. What you witnessed last night and goings on this morning.
Yeah, it was just incredibly difficult to watch that. I mean, I was watching it live, like me and Casey were, and I mean, it was so important. I mean, Casey was on her phone, not even paying attention, and she put the phone down, and we sat there on the couch for 2 hours watching the entire broadcast, and you just had this fear. And you hear a word like CPR. I mean, it takes your breath away a little bit, especially when you see it happen on the field. Because
have you ever seen anybody get CPR?
I've never seen it before.
I've witnessed it a couple of times, and it's
and I can't imagine.
And I don't even know who the person is. I have no connection to them whatsoever. But just the actual visualization of seeing somebody die in front of you is, and again, when you have zero connection to them,
yeah,
it's life changing. When it's your brother,
yeah,
in arms, and I mean,
yeah, and that was the hardest part. It's like I think Casey even said to me, she's like, you're not even involved in this. You don't even know who this guy is, and it feels like you almost look like you've been there. And I'm like, it's like, sports is a weird thing. It feels like we know these guys because we watch them, we cheer them on. There's so much emotion into it, and when someone goes down like that, we speak to them
on a weekly basis.
It's bone chilling stuff. And to see the players, I mean, Stephon Diggs, Tre'Davious White, go down the list of all the players, just the look of shock in their face, the tears. I mean, it's hard to put into words. And, I was trying to think of, what's the one thing that as sports fans, we hate when people that aren't sports fans say to us, it's just a game.
Yeah.
We get, at least I do. I get outraged when people try to tell me when I get so emotional and invested into it. It's just a game. Why are you getting all worked up? In moments like last night remind us it is just a game. And, we can talk about the scenarios of the game and, we entered it and it was supposed to be the game of the year, right? We talked about that coming in, the game of the year, and it was anything but. And it's just a reminder that it is just a game. And I think what we heard from last night, and I feel for the ESPN crew that had to fill airtime talking about it and try to put it as eloquently as possible and navigate through it. From Susie Colbert to Adam Schefter to Booger McFarland, who I thought was fantastic last night.
He really was.
He was the first one to kind of call out the league and say, we don't want, I mean, I like what he said. Football is entertainment. Nobody wants to be entertained right now. Shut it down.
Yeah.
We're done. Yeah. And even Scott Van Pelt and Ryan Clark. And look at Ryan Clark. I mean, the tears he had, right? And texting his mother, right? From prayers and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's just one of those nights where, I mean, I'm always going to remember it. You're always going to remember where you were when this happened for whatever reason. I just feel that way because, I mean, I don't know if there's any precedents for this in the NFL at least.
Well, Inky Johnson, this was a college game. He kind of went through the same thing. And Dr. Lugo, if you missed that, that was very, very informative for me. I hope you guys learned something from that. But there's a lot of people are talking about the instantaneous shot to the heart and how that can electrically shock your heart and go limp. And as Dr. Lugo explained, because he's been in these situations before in the military, is when that happens, you don't get up. You know, he got up and then he fell back down.
Yeah,
that's what happened in the Inky Johnson situation when he had his thoracic aorta, I think is what they call it, severed when he got hit in the neck area, and there's a aorta or a large blood vessel underneath there that ruptured, and they got him to the hospital and they saved his life. He's got a paralyzed arm now, but they saved his life. And in that case, you stand up and then you're bleeding out and then you fall out. And that's that's what he believes happened. It almost couldn't be the other thing because it wasn't instantaneous. He would have just stayed down if that was the electric shock type thing. So he's thinking there was more of a rupture of subtype in one of his main blood vessels. So an artery here, an artery there. I said aorta. I mean an artery. So,
and I tell you what too, and I hate that it always happens when bad things happen to people. We finally figure out who they are, I guess, from a personal standpoint, especially when they're a player like Damar Hamlin, who a lot of people may not be familiar with. And if you want an example of that, go look at the relationship that he has with his family. And that's what he's always said. He loves when his family comes out there. Have you seen the video of him and his mom hugging on the sideline a couple weeks ago in Detroit, I think it was, right? And his mom was there last night.
Right.
Which I can't imagine as a parent. I mean, I'm not a parent. I don't have that perspective yet.
Oh my God.
But I can't imagine what as a parent, what you're thinking, especially when you see it happen live like that. But even then, like the toy charity, he has his annual toy charity. $2,000 were raised before that
didn't even reach the goal of $2,500.
$2,000. And
now
as we sit here,
$3.5 million.
Yeah, as we sit here, $3.5 million and rising.
Yeah.
America stepped up last night. And I think I hate that it takes things like that to happen for people to understand how good this man is.
Yeah. Heartbreaking. Couple other, and I appreciate you guys chiming in here. So if Cincinnati wins out, and the Chiefs lose out, Cincy would get the bye. Right. So we'll know after next week if we just cancel this game and tentatively schedule it for a makeup in week 19 and just take the off week of the Super Bowl and put that game in there, just give everybody a week off and a chance to just, deal with this and process it. I think that would be the best way to go about it. And I mentioned the Erickson situation. You might know more about this as well, but Jordan mentions in regard to the situation, UEFA gave them the choices: play the game that night, play the following day, or forfeit with a result deemed a 3-0 loss. Denmark did not want to play. I remember that. They did not want to play.
Yeah.
But they basically made them play. And I think they end up losing the game, didn't they?
It's all a blur now. Yeah. After something like that happens, I mean, it just...
But that's ridiculous. Like, forfeit the game? Are you effing kidding me? No. Under no circumstances do you punish a team for having a player die on the field. And in this case, Erickson was revived.
By the way, in this scenario, do you think the Bengals wanted to go play in that game?
No, of course not. Nobody did. There are no opposing teams in a situation like this. They're all brothers.
Yeah, it stops being football player. It's human.
Yeah, you're not in different uniforms.
We're talking about a person who was fighting for their life.
Yeah.
And it happened on a football field. There's nothing else that really matters. That's why I say, like, it took an hour for them to figure out that they needed to postpone the game. Like, I don't want to be that guy, again, that plays, Like, well, what if I was in that scenario? I would have done this. I don't know what I would have done if I was in that scenario, right? But the NFL is. And I think that the game probably should have been called a lot earlier than it was. Maybe move a little swifter, whatever the protocol is. I don't know if is there a protocol for this of what to do? If there is, maybe you need to break it a little bit.
I remember, I can't remember the exact situation, but I remember there being CPR administered on the field before. And I want to say it was in a game I was covering. God, my memory's so bad. But I just remember seeing, and it may not have been a football game. I just remember seeing somebody doing chest compressions. I don't think it was Hank Gathers. It may have been Hank Gathers. You weren't alive then, but I watched that live too. Hank Gathers literally collapsing and dying on a basketball court in the tournament. I mean, just wow! It's crazy. And then we see the medical people, but again, it was clear. It was clear as day within about 5 minutes that this was something completely different.
Yeah.
And when the players were, and then but you knew, like the league knew what happened. I mean, we're still kind of a little bit in the dark at this point. 9 minutes after it happens and he's loaded in the ambulance, the league knows that he's been intubated. His heart stopped. They had to get the defibrillator out to get his heart going again. They gave him CPR. I mean, they know this. Game over. Like,
yeah. And
there's no decision here.
And I really,
this is not, oh, he's going to regain consciousness and he's giving the thumbs up as he's coming off the field and everybody's clapping. We've seen that a lot.
Yeah.
But this was not that. It was clearly not that.
And I just wanted it to be over too, because I don't know how you feel about this stuff, and I get it. Professional athletes got a camera in their face all the time. I get it. But there's just something about that moment. Like, I didn't necessarily want to see Tre'Davious White breaking down in tears all over the place. I don't think it was fair to every player to have the camera and their reaction to this have to be out. And I just wanted it to end. Like, we saw it. Like, it hurt to see it. It's like I didn't want to see any of it anymore. That's why I just wanted things to go a little quicker.
I'll be honest with you. After about a half hour, 45 minutes of coverage, I realized that we weren't going to learn anything new, and I couldn't watch it anymore. I couldn't watch it. I was getting mad at the fact they kept running commercials. I was just getting really pissed off about that, and I tweeted about it. And it was funny because as they went on, they started to run more PSAs and more promos and less, ED commercials. That pissed me off. And then, I'm starting to, get mad at some of the announcers for some of the things they're saying and understanding that they're the ones being tasked with filling this airspace so they can put the commercials on. And I'm sure the executives who get real-time numbers are going, oh, we're holding the audience. Let's get those Buick commercials out there. Let's get those betting commercials. That FanDuel's got to get that stuff out there. And because they know real time how many people are still watching.
Yeah.
And so after a while, I was just disgusted by it. And I said, I'm going to go do some work. I'll keep checking in Twitter. And thank God I did, because it was just a lot of, mumbo jumbo, more commercials. So, I just think, and I get it. In hindsight, we can all be judgmental on the way they handled it. But I think in real time, there should have been people with enough sense to know that, running commercials for an hour or whatever it was afterwards was probably in poor taste. There's another comment from Jordan. Kudos to the coaches for standing up for their players. These guys are the classiest leaders out there. A lot of respect for both of them. Yeah, I mean, and this was in real time, and I'm watching it, and I'm watching them say, there's CPR was administered, we know all these things that are happening. And I'm like, why are we even considering playing this game? And then it was like, then the 5-minute thing was given. Like, you could tell that the coaches were told you got 5 minutes to warm up. And I'm like, what? Like, this can't be happening. And then you could see the players, like the coaches were like, okay.
Yeah. Cause even
and then they went back to their sidelines, and then I think, if I'm not mistaken, the two coaches kind of came together themselves and were like after they took the temperature of their players, like, hey, you got to go tell were these coaches going? Because it looked like it. They were like, hey, we got 5 minutes warm up, but nobody was warming up.
Well, Stephon Diggs, I know he kind of gathered everybody around, and he was, shouting like, hey guys, we got to lock in here. Like, we got to get going. It kind of sounded like that's at least what Stephon Diggs was trying to get guys to do,
right?
Because they had walked over to the sideline and they were all kind of, head down, tears, all that kind of stuff. And he kind of said, hey, we got to get together here. But then after they broke off, every player went back to doing the same thing they were doing before.
Yeah.
And then I remember they showed a shot of Josh Allen.
And by the way, we don't in any way blame Stephon Diggs for trying to do that.
No, he was told they were going to play.
And
probably.
he's trying to make the best of a bad situation and be a leader in that moment.
Exactly.
And that's great for him to do that.
When they showed Josh Allen singular by himself on the bench,
yeah,
I looked at his eyes.
Yeah.
He wasn't there.
Yeah, he was not there.
And I'm like, you know what? At some point, you might want to get the game done with the NFL. But you know what? It's not safe for the guys to even go back out there in that headspace.
No.
It's just not safe.
It's not compassionate.
So even though you're trying to move things along, you're making it even worse from a safety standpoint, which you're trying to preach that you care so much about.
I could see them going out there and Josh Allen, like getting in a huddle and coming up to the line and just going, F it. Just looking at the ref going, no, we're not doing this. I'm not taking this snap. I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
And I could have seen that totally happening because the players look, they're conditioned all their lives. The coach tells you to do something, you go do it. That's the way it works.
And that's the perspective.
You don't question it.
And that's the perspective we heard. Although this was completely different, and the players and like Ryan Clark, Booger made a point to say it. Like, we're so conditioned to see guys go down with injury, and just put it in the back of our mind and keep going. Right? We look for the thumbs up and we move on.
Right.
But this was something so far different.
Right.
And it wasn't just an injury.
Right.
It becomes life or death at that point. So I mean, at that, no one's equipped to handle that in that moment. To ask them to go back out there, nobody.
Yeah. So it's a horrible situation, and we just hope that we're resolved here soon. And I know that we're talking about and criticizing people in the moment, but it's hard not to in this situation. I just think the NFL came off looking terrible, and I think right now they're involved in a cover up of the situation, which is even worse. And you're going to be found out. Like, people are going to get to the bottom of this. Although I don't know, in this day and age, everything is censored. So who knows? Maybe we will never know what happened. But some other. This is Jordan, who is a first responder, and Jordan, we thank you for chiming in here, buddy. As a first responder, early defibrillation shock, CPR, hands on chest, most certainly saved his life. Kept his blood flowing with almost no interruption. Got the pulse back on the field. Kudos to the coaches for standing up for their players. These guys are the classiest leaders out there. A lot of respect for both of them. Mark says, I remember the Hank Gather situation. Yeah, that was horrible. In recent memory, in regards to the NHL, it brought back memories most recently of Jay Baumeister's on the Blues bench, and they got him back rapidly. Yeah, that's right. When he coded on the bench after finishing a shift in Anaheim in 2020, I do remember that. Yeah, that was crazy. And thank God that we have guys like Jordan around, who these first responders that these guys know that when they're on the field and their lives at stake, that they've got the best medical people out there, and this was proof that it happened. All right, well, we got to move on, and we're going to talk about the Bucs here in our second hour. So I know you guys have a lot of questions, but we wanted to give go through an hour of commercial free and get Chris Lugo on to give you as much information as possible. But we do have to pay the bills, and we want to get our sponsors in here as well. And we thank them very much for allowing us to go commercial free for the first hour. Our great folks at the Golden Diamond Source, Bay Area Modern Medical Center, Chris Lugo, obviously, Italiano Insurance, American Mortgage Service, Scott Fitzgerald, in my moment, Jeeves Law Group, of course, Jeeves Law Group. Thank you very much. All of our sponsors, Golden Diamond Source, for allowing us to go commercial free for an hour. All right, we'll be back and talk about what's ahead for the Buccaneers as they look ahead to a week in Atlanta. And is Todd Bowles making the right decision by letting his starters play? We will talk about that when we come back. JP here for the Jeeves Law Group. I've known Scott Jeeves for quite some time, and he's just like us, a huge college football fan. He loves his Gators. In fact, he sponsors our Gator Report every Thursday at 11 o'clock with Scott Carter from FloridaGators.com. But he's not just another PI attorney. He is a ferocious advocate for his clients. Scott Jeeves is a board-certified civil trial lawyer and a certified circuit court mediator practicing in Tampa Bay for over 30 years. He is an AV preeminent rated civil trial lawyer and certified circuit court mediator. Folks, these designations are not just given out. They're given only to the best trial attorneys. But more than anything, Scott takes these cases personally. I've heard it from his clients. He's a fighter you want on your side. Insurance companies hate it when they see you're represented by Jeeves. He's just different. 727-894-2929 or go to JeevesLawGroup.com. That's JEEVES lawgroup.com and tell them JP sent you. Now is the time to make sure your home insurance is in order. In the last year, many of us have made improvements to our homes. So call the folks at Italiano and discuss these upgrades to make sure you have enough coverage. According to a recent report, almost 64% of homeowners don't have enough insurance on their home, which is their most valuable asset. Also, a great time to make sure you have flood insurance. Even if your mortgage company does not require flood insurance, your home could still be at flood risk. Another big item as we enter hurricane season is making sure your pool enclosure is added to your policy and there will be no issue at claim time. That happens a lot. So call your friendly agent at Italiano Insurance to review your policies today. 813-877-7799 or ItalianoInsurance.com. Attention, if you are home shopping or looking for a refinance, and even if you already have the approval letter, you must call my man Scott Fitzgerald at American Mortgage Services. Scott has a brand new program available in the greater Tampa Bay area called the Community Advantage Loan Program. Get this, no money down, no mortgage insurance, no points, no origination fee, purchase or refinance, and loan amounts up to $647,000. Now, there are some application requirements. It must be a single-family home, one unit, primary residence, and have a minimum 640 credit score. The program only applies to certain neighborhoods, so you have to call to find out if you qualify. So call Scott Fitzgerald at 813-294-7595 or email him at scott@amstampa.com. Now, even if you don't qualify for that program, Scott will shop your loan around, get you the best rates, and won't charge you the huge upfront fees. And if you've had issues with your bank calling you back, Scott will return calls immediately or at least same day. 813-294-7595 or email him, scott@amstampa.com. Scott Fitzgerald, MLS 386722, American Mortgage Services, 1000 North Ashley Drive, Suite 1020, Tampa, Florida. Was your car totaled in an accident? Did your insurance company use Kelley Blue Book or NADA to appraise the value of your car? Chances are they didn't, and you got shorted maybe thousands of dollars. Call the Jeeves Law Group for a free case evaluation because your insurance company may still owe you money. 727-894-2929. It's a free call, so why not find out if you have a case? Insurance companies have been running this scam for a while, and most folks don't know if they've been shorted. Trust me. Scott Jeeves is a different kind of attorney, the kind insurance companies hate to go up against. He could recover thousands of dollars, so why not call? 727-894-2929 or go to JeevesLawGroup.com. That's JEEVES lawgroup.com and tell them JP sent you. JP here for Emerging Investigations, Tampa Bay's premier investigation agency. Do you suspect your spouse is cheating or involved in a divorce, that your spouse is hiding money, an ex-employee or current employee with suspicious behavior? Is there a criminal matter you need help with? If you need information you can count on, using the professionals at Emerging Investigations is a slam dunk. Emerging Investigations is a licensed and insured private investigation agency, family-owned. Emerging is your ideal resource to secure evidence and validation, allowing you to make informed decisions in life's biggest matters. Led by industry executive Brian D'Antonio, Emerging possesses the experience and resources to get needed results. Emerging Investigations maintains an excellent reputation as a premier investigation agency. They are known for results. You're not just hiring a PI, but an organized, dedicated team using state-of-the-art technology. Their proven investigative methods produce crucial information used in criminal cases, insurance fraud, and personal injury claims. Many local attorneys, industry agencies, and your concerned neighbors all count on Emerging Investigations. Just go to their website, emerginginv.com, or call 813-291-FACT. That's 813-291-FACT-3228. Get results you can trust in life's biggest matters. Emerging Investigations. Well, it's that time to renew or shop your health insurance provider, and you can get great health insurance for $20, $30, $50 a month. Just call 888-325-0605 to help navigate the health insurance marketplace. 1 out of 3 people in Florida are uncovered because they think they can't afford it. Not true. I made the call a couple of years ago, and they helped me get Blue Cross Blue Shield coverage, Florida Blue, for just $20 a month. Last year, it went up to $49. Oh, well. It all depends on your income and your family situation. It's a free call, 888-325-0605. They ask for some income information. So if you have your tax returns available, that will be great, but you don't need it. They'll just answer some simple questions, and the highly trained reps will do the work for you to find out what your subsidy will be. 888-325-0605. And if you have a plan through your employer, you may be able to get it cheaper. It's a free call, so find out, folks. This has been a lifesaver for me and saved me thousands of dollars over the last few years, and you can choose your plan. It's a no-brainer. Find out. Make the free call. 888-325-0605. Get covered like me and thousands of others. 888-325-0605. Oh, 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 Merry Christmas. Santa Claus here for the gold and diamond source. All right, it's JP. The holidays are the best time for engagements, right? And where better to get that special ring than the Gold and Diamond Source? They have the largest selection of engagement rings in the country, a jewelry superstore with 30 times the inventory of any normal jeweler. So avoid all the mall madness and the parking and all that BS and stay local, right? With the Gold and Diamond Source, Julie and Steve Weintraub are the family jewelers, and they'll treat you like family. And, of course, they do so many great things in the community. I was just at their Hands Across the Bay, a charity event. So many people stepped up to give money for these women that have been victims of domestic abuse. It is something to behold when these women come forward and talk about what Julie and Steve have done for them. And the Golden Diamond Source funds Hands Across the Bay, and so many other great companies jump in. That's what it's all about, community, right? So let's keep it local for the holidays. If you want a perfect gift for the holidays, you should check out the unique and beautiful handcrafted jewelry from the Emilique and Julie collections that feature fashion-forward gold, diamond, and gemstone jewelry. And don't forget, for the holidays only, 3 to 5 year interest-free financing. It's a no-brainer for the holidays. It's the Golden Diamond Source, 3800 Almerton Road, always online at thegoldendiamondsource.com.
Let's go.
Right now, back to the show with JP on FanStream Sports.
All right, welcome back to the JP Peterson Show, brought to you by Bay Area Modern Medical Center, BAMMC.com. We thank Christopher Lugo for coming on earlier today and really, I think, giving us some very, very interesting and important information as to what caused this, because all athletes want to know. I think all parents are going to want to know, what's going on. Because there's a lot of athletes that have, had sudden cardiac issues in the past couple of years, more than any we've ever had. And, not going to sit here and BS you folks. The vaccine is obviously a part of this conversation. There's no question about that, but we don't want to do that this early. We'll wait till we find out what's happening. I mean, I'm not saying that because people are wondering, obviously. Dr. Robert Malone had a press conference this weekend, who's the actual inventor of the mRNA technology this week, and he called for the immediate stoppage of these vaccines, promoting these vaccines, because the data is overwhelming now that based on past vaccine trials and this many serious adverse events that have been reported, you would stop those vaccines immediately. That's what we did with swine flu. That's what they did with another RSV vaccine, and based on one adverse event in 100,000. So yeah, there's a lot of credible information out there about that now, and of course all the players were mandated to take the vaccine, so we're unless he had some exemption, that's part of it. So that's part of the conversation, whether you like it or not. It's going to be part of the conversation, and it should be, because parents who had their kids vaccinated and are playing sports, they need to know what's happening. They need to know the information, pro or con. So, contrary to a lot of people who feel like you shouldn't be able to talk about any of this stuff, you should, because clearly the truth is out there, and science is never settled. It's always being discussed, especially medical science is never settled. Think about how many things we've been told all our life are settled science as far as your body goes. And it's turned out to be just the opposite. So, we ask questions, and this should absolutely be part of the conversation. Because it's happening, and you can't deny it. It's happening all over the world with athletes and young people. A lot of very strange cardiac events happening. So should we not talk about it? Should parents not know what's happening? No. Transparency is what should be happening. So this will be part of the conversation as well. as we move forward. So I was just having a conversation here in the office with some of our fine folks here about, the broadcast and how it was handled and how everything was handled. And I think, one of the people that I thought did a fantastic job on it was Scott Van Pelt last night, SVP, and Ryan Clark. I thought they had the most candid conversations about how this thing was handled and what's going through the players' minds. And so let me just play it now, and you can have your own reaction. This is a Scott Van Pelt show last night on ESPN.
I think it seems to me that this was, someone got hurt. This is heavy. We're going to give you 5 minutes. You get loose and we're going to play. And then what happened is Taylor and McDermott and their team said, no, we're not. That's what it appears to me.
I believe they care 100%.
Well, I'm just saying that the league can say whatever it wants to say about we're going to play football tonight.
I got you.
And a group of men locked arms on different sides of a sideline and said, no, we're not. And it was, I think that obviously the correct decision was made because the context became clear, I would think, to anyone that this game could not be played right now. I don't know when.
I think there were, when you look at Stephon Diggs, who was visibly moved by what was going on, I think even in his mind, he thought to himself, there's no way they don't allow this game to finish, right? I think he even believed that because of the magnitude of the game, and I think that's why he was trying to get his teammates back into the frame of mind to play, because he thought to himself, I know what's going on, but we have to go play. And even when they turned back around, the emotion of what their friend was going through took over again. They couldn't even get back into football. Sean McDermott couldn't get back into coaching football, understanding that men that he has been handpicked to guide and to lead, that one of those men is fighting for his life. And it's the same thing on the other side with the Cincinnati Bengals. They are dealing with that as well. They are watching this happen in real time. And the small little selfish pieces of us are also what makes us empathetic. It's also what makes us compassionate. That everyone that had on a pair of shoulder pads tonight finally looked at him and said to themselves, that could be me. That could be my best friend. That could be my closest teammate. We are all in this. And in all being in this, we all feel this. And in feeling this, we had to make a decision. And I'm so glad that these guys didn't have to go back out on this field tonight and try to play a damn game.
In the end, they made the right decision. But for me, it took way too long for this to happen. And I do think it illuminates how the league looks at the players in these situations.
It confirms what we've always known, really, of how the league has felt about these players. Let's be honest here. And it's getting overshadowed now, even this whole Tua situation with the whole concussion. It almost feels like the league is like, there's so much conflicting information here of what happened now with this second concussion for Tua. It's being overshadowed now, but don't let that one go untalked about either. Because this league that wants to put a good front and say they're all about safety, no, they're not. No, they're not.
And again, when we say league, it's kind of, you got to define that, because clearly the coaches are not the league. We're talking about the league offices. We're talking about Roger Goodell. We're talking about the executives. We're talking about management. We're talking about owners. It's owners, management versus players. Okay. NFLPA, owners, management, because Roger Goodell works for the owners. Yeah. He's the point person for the owners. So, what do the owners want? For the owners, this is a business. It's a business. And by the way, especially less than 24 hours after, I know some of these conversations can become callous and some of the words sound callous, but this is a business. It is a business and involves risk. Most sports do. It's part of the reason we watch, to be quite honest. Why do you watch NASCAR? It's a gladiator sport. It is what it is. So you watch it on a weekly basis. Don't think that you're not part of this. You are. You watch for the violence of the sport. And we all even complain when they take some of the violence out, which I feel a little ashamed of right now, to be quite honest. But the fact of the matter is we do, and it is. And by the way, building skyscrapers is a dangerous business. Building dams is a dangerous business. Mining diamonds and oil and every gas and flying airplanes. People die all the time within business. It happens. And this is part of the NFL as well. But it's different. Like, right. It's like, these are accidents that you do your best not to ever happen on the workplace. Right. But It happens. This is an accident that happens in the workplace that you hope never, ever happens. And you try to make it as safe as you possibly can. But the object of the game is to get the ball across the goal line. And a human has to carry that ball or catch that ball. And another human wants to stop that from happening. And inevitably, they're going to collide. They're going to collide. And we're going to have injuries. And we're going to have major injuries. And we're going to have major impacts. And this is going to happen.
Yeah.
It's part of the sport. That being said, you want to make it as safe as you possibly can. You want to make it as compassionate as you possibly can. And the things that are within your control, you want to be able to do to make things safe for the players. But I think, as you're pointing out, sometimes it feels like the league, the owners don't really care about what happens to these players.
And I don't think they care about any of the causes they stand for. And I'm not trying to turn this conversation into a bash NFL subject. I'm trying not to, but in general, I don't think the NFL cares about any of the causes that they try to put out there for good PR. I don't think they care about the player safety. The NFL reported like a $14 billion revenue this past season.
Yeah.
They just
They
had 45 million people or whatever watch the Cowboys on Thanksgiving this year. So ratings are going up. They just crushed the NBA on Christmas Day, and it wasn't even like a fair fight at all.
Mm-hmm.
They forced another sport to play their Winter Classic on January 2nd on a Monday because they were scared of competing with them. That's what the NFL is.
It's a beast.
It's a beast. And it's a money-making machine. And I love it. I absolutely love it. You love it. There's a reason why it makes so much money.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, don't confuse it. That is what it's all about. It's what it's all about. And anything that happens in there, guess what? They're not going to lose any more money because of this. Nobody's not going to stop watching. They might say they are, but they're not going to stop watching.
Mm-mm. And if they played this game tomorrow, they'd probably get record ratings.
Probably so.
Yeah.
And then here's the thing. Everybody that would say, oh, that's so insensitive. How are you playing this game the day after? Those people are going to watch the game.
Yeah, we are.
Whether that's right or wrong, maybe we're just thinking about this the wrong way. We're going to watch.
And you know what would keep them from doing it? If we didn't watch.
Yeah, but it's just not going to happen, is it?
So we're part of the problem.
Yeah.
Honestly, we are part of the problem. Because we're going to watch, because we want to see what they say. We're going to see what they do, see how the players handle it, all of that. We're all part of it in a weird way. You know, because it's set up to make the more eyeballs you get, the more Buicks you sell, the more ED medicine you sell, the more Budweiser you sell. And that's how it works. So it is what it is. But first and foremost, as we return to talking about the Bucs, our hearts and our prayers and our thoughts, if that's the way you handle these things, go out to Damar Hamlin and his family. And we pray to God. We pray to God that he is going to be okay. And maybe like an Inky Johnson will return to, I doubt that he'll ever play football again. But if he wants to play football again, God bless him. I hope he can. I mean, Erickson has come back to play soccer, right? He's playing for Man United.
High
now.
level, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he literally died on the pitch and he was revived and he is now back to playing.
And I tell you what, too, I also real quick before we move on to the Bucs, just to tie a bow on this. Did you all get into the, cause I missed the first 40 minutes here. Did you mention the Skip Bayless tweet from last night?
We did a little bit, but I didn't. Do you have it? Do you have it?
Yeah, I'll pull the tweet up, but I just wanted to point out this morning.
And evidently he's on without Shannon.
That's what I was going to point out there, that he's solo today. They've obviously had a lot of tense moments lately, but it's kind of clear to see there why Shannon Sharp probably did not want to show up today. So it's Skip Bayless by himself, but let me get his tweet to come back up here, which honestly, it didn't surprise me that this was his reaction.
it's a bit of a mixed message, though,
Yeah,
to be quite honest.
said,
I mean, I'm not
no
a
doubt,
Skip Bayless fan.
Yeah,
but
no doubt the NFL is considering postponing the rest of this game, but how? This late in the season, a game of this magnitude is crucial to the regular season outcome, which suddenly seems so irrelevant.
So he's pointing out that it's irrelevant, but then you're asking, you're kind of saying that this game's too important to continue. I mean, what the F are you talking about, bro?
In that moment, it's just a bad tweet. It's a really bad tweet. It's a bad reaction. And, there's a lot of athletes who have been commenting under this. And I think Skip's lost a lot of respect from a lot of people, including I. But
I didn't have a whole lot.
Not many people had a lot of respect with him to begin with. It just came off as like, you know what? You're messing up the content for my show tomorrow.
Yeah.
I've had it written. We're going to do this segment, this
Right.
segment on the game, and now you've ruined it. That's what it came off like.
But he also said it seems irrelevant. Well, yeah, that should have been your first go-to, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
but how? I'll tell you how. We're not playing. That's how. God, yeah. But you're right. You said Twitter's replete with, my fantasy this,
my gambling,
my gambling that. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
shut the F up, for God's sakes. Man. God, that's why, to me, the whole damn thing seems surreal. I was like, what? The dude was just CPR'd. They brought out the paddles. They defibbed the guy.
Yeah.
Look at the players. Like, are you kidding me? Maybe it's because, it's like a couple of people have in our chat have said, I work in the medical field and I've seen this quite some time. It's a lot, even for people in the medical field. When you witness somebody or have to perform CPR on somebody, I'm just witnessing it again as a stranger is incredibly traumatic to witness. Like, for those players, no. No. All right, so we'll move on. So yesterday, Todd Bowles, and I know you got some other, but if you can get the Bowles stuff up from yesterday, Todd Bowles did his day after press conference. And, obviously the question is, what are you going to do against Atlanta next week, 1:00 on Fox? And I think we've got to keep going. It's football season. We're football players. So it is what we do. We play football. This has nothing to do with the Damar Hamlin. This was before all that happened. So he's going to go forward with playing his starters. And I, for one, from my opinion, and Todd Bowles knows a hell of a lot more about football than I do, I don't see how with a guy with a high ankle sprain like Tristan Wirfs, who needs to get off his feet, and a foot injury tackle to Donovan Smith, and a calf injury to Vita Vea. These are big men who need rest in those extremities to be able to play at their best in the playoffs. And if those guys aren't playing, then there's no way they should be playing. Like, in no way should they be playing. How do you trot your 45-year-old quarterback out behind two backup tackles? I don't know if this is gamesmanship or what's going on, but this is lunacy. For me, I'm sorry. What are you doing?
Well, I told you when we had this discussion yesterday that Tom Brady's going to do whatever he can to play in this game. And lo and behold, last night, I haven't had a chance to listen to his to the full podcast, but I had like the quote here. I won't read all of it, but just to sum it up, he doesn't like the fact when people say it's a meaningless game. And he brings up the fact that, they're 8-8. We don't have our problems all solved. We look at it as another opportunity every day of practice to get better. I'm not the head coach. I don't make those decisions. Obviously, I'll do whatever he wants to do and support it. But I love going out there and playing, is what Tom Brady said. And I mean, that was kind of my thing I said yesterday. Like, I don't like the idea of like resting starters, because I mean, I'd have to go back and see if there's like the breakdown of like teams that rest starters, playoff performance, things like that. But just on the surface for this team, because of everything we've seen, the inconsistencies, I agree with what he said. Every single game, a chance to go out there and continue that rhythm, to me, is needed. That's my opinion on it. So, like, I know, and I think Todd Bowles had even said, like, we can't play and coach scared of getting injured. We can't do it like that.
True.
So,
and I agree with those sentiments. I totally do. And I've seen teams that have a meaningless game in week 18 and then have a bye. So they're literally not playing for 3 weeks. They come out and universally they look like crap.
Yeah.
Most every time. Now, they don't always lose. They find it somewhere midway through the first half, and they usually go on to win the games, if I'm not mistaken. But because the record of teams giving it, but how many teams rest their starters, et cetera, et cetera. So I agree with those sentiments, but I also, in these particular injury cases, and even Tom, clearly he can benefit from giving his shoulder a week off. I mean, if he's taking, important practices off during the week because he's trying to limit the amount of throws, what sense does it make to go out there and do it all week long and for a meaningless game in terms of the standings? I think that's dubious at best. And again, I don't know how much Tristan Wirfs is hurting. I don't know how much Donovan Smith is hurting. Maybe they're all healthy. Maybe the time that they've had, but if there's any lingering effects, and my experience is with a high ankle sprain for, the entire time I've been covering this league, that stuff doesn't just go away. It lingers. And the more you're off it, the better it is. And to get Tristan Wirfs 2 weeks off and these guys with leg injuries, 2 weeks off seems like a godsend that we never thought we could possibly have. So then are you really going to put Brady out there with 2 backup tackles? No,
but I think
if Jensen, you have any ideas of Jensen playing in a playoff game, he needs to get out there next week, because if he can't play next week, then he shouldn't be playing in a playoff game.
I'm not saying they got to play the full 60 minutes. I don't think I'm vouching for that. I don't know if Brady wants to play the full 60 minutes.
Well, that's insane. That's got to be completely off the table.
I'm just saying you want to play, I think at most, like I said yesterday, at most play the first half, right? Because I still need to see this team. I still want to see this team build some drives together. And if they could come
out, what I'd tell them, if Brady wants to play, you know what I'd say? You come out and give me points in the first 2 drives and you can play. And that's all you're going to play. It's just like if you come out there and struggle, I'm just not doing it. Because guess what? They could come out and lay an egg because they're not, why? Because in the back of their mind, they know it's meaningless. Are you really going to stand in there, Tom, and take the extra time like you did this week when you knew it with the season was on the line and take a hit? No, you're not. You're going to play like you did most of the season where you don't want to get hit. And I'm saying that in a smart way because if you get injured, it's over. You're going to play tentatively. And when you play tentatively, that's when you get hurt. Mm-hmm. And you could say, well, we don't want to think. If you're playing in this game in the back of your mind, you know what you're thinking? Man, I hope I don't get hurt. Come on. Am I wrong?
I just don't know if players think like that. Like in the moment. I really don't. I don't think they think out there, I could get hurt on this play. I really don't think that, especially Brady. I really don't think Brady does.
He played.
I really don't.
He played the guy I saw play, and I went back and watched the game last night again. That guy stood in the pocket, danced around more than I've seen him do it all year long. And I'm talking about maybe 8 to 10 times.
I mean, this guy is notorious.
He's been throwing that ball away every single time. He sniffs pressure.
Okay, but
and I get it because if you get hit. Look at
the history of Brady.
But during that game, he stood in there.
Yes, but look at the history of Brady though. This guy has played through hand injuries. He's played through shoulder injuries. And he never lets you know. He's never on the injury report. He wore a glove.
I'm not saying he's not tough.
Hold up. He wore a glove to a New England Patriots presser a few years ago because he didn't want anybody to see his hand, and he just kept saying, "I'm fine. I'm fine." He also played through a torn meniscus in his knee the year he won the Super Bowl. I don't think this guy's really worried about if he's getting hurt.
Well, he certainly played like it this year.
A lot of other factors there.
Of course there is. But what I'm saying is he even said it in the press conference.
Listen, I just want to see
we play our best when our back is against the wall.
Yes, but again, you got
I
one
like
more.
It.
I don't like that. I don't like that. But you got one more shot to go back out there and play good when your back's not against the wall. And how about score a first drive touchdown? I want to see. I'm still going to keep saying it. Can I see a 7-0 lead? What
if they do go out there and play, and they lay another stinker out there, and you get beat by the Falcons? 2 guys get injured, and I don't like ever, living in your fears. I don't live my life that way. I don't think you ever should live your life that way. But there's also being smart and taking advantage of situations that are handed to you on a silver platter. And to me, again, I totally get the momentum thing. And maybe he goes out and plays a couple series, but if there's no way I'm putting him out there without Donovan and Wirfs.
Let me ask you a question. Maybe a little bit different of a situation.
Okay.
Remember we talked about the Jaguars and Titans? And they could have rested all their starters, both teams, for week 17 because they play each other in week 18. No matter what happens, the winner gets in.
Mm-hmm.
The Titans rested their starters, right? They're reeling. They were 7-3 at one point. Now they're not, and they have to win this game to get into the postseason. The Jaguars are rolling. You think Doug Peterson was ever going to stop that rolling train going into Tennessee? Who do you feel better about? The team that rested their starters?
This is a much different situation.
I know it's a different situation.
Much different situation.
I know it's a different situation. I'm just pointing out momentum going in, wanting to be rolling. The Bucs could be on a 3-game win streak going in.
I generally favor that. But if I have key players that have leg injuries, that's the key thing here. I generally agree.
Which players are you against playing?
Wirfs, Donovan, and Vea, for sure, and Winfield.
So, but then if you take out Wirfs and Donovan, that takes out Brady.
Absolutely.
Correct.
Are you going to allow Brady to play with 2 backup tackles? Come on, he's not that dumb. Like, absolutely no way.
Probably not.
No way. Come on, that's gross negligence. No way. So I agree philosophically with what he's saying. I really do. But in this particular situation, with the leg injuries to the key guys, nah. And if they were all defensive guys, I'd say, okay, let Brady got his offensive line. Everybody's there. Okay, I'll be all right. A few series, I see it. Get it going. Get a couple more deep balls. Yeah, I'm good with that. But in this particular situation, with these particular players, I think it's lunacy.
Well, we'll see.
All right. Well, we're going to talk to our good friend TJ Reeves after we take this break. We'll take a quick break and we'll come back and we'll chat with TJ Reeves, who's certainly been on the field for many injuries, and get his take on what happened last night. And also, we'll talk about the Bucs, them moving forward, playing their starters and going to the playoffs, baby. Going to the playoffs. Let's not forget that this team won one hell of a football game this week, and they're going to play that. I believe I said 1,000 times last week they were not going to win. So I'll take that one and love every minute of it too, by the way. All right, we'll be back with TJ after this. JP here for Italiano Insurance. If you've started a side hustle during COVID and the business has grown, well, you need business insurance, because if you get sued, you could lose all your personal wealth if you're not properly protected. That's right. Your home, your savings, everything could go. So get protected now. Call the great agents at Italiano Insurance, 813-877-7799, and a real human will answer the phone and get you protected. If you haven't shopped your business insurance in a while, you could be overpaying by thousands. One customer had their golf buddy handling his business insurance, then called Italiano to shop it around, and they saved him $26,000 a year. Yeah. So call 813-877-7799 or go to ItalianoInsurance.com. Italiano Insurance, protecting all the pieces of your life for over 60 years. Attention, if you are home shopping or looking for a refinance, and even if you already have the approval letter, you must call my man Scott Fitzgerald at American Mortgage Services. Scott has a brand new program available in the greater Tampa Bay area called the Community Advantage Loan Program. Get this, no money down, no mortgage insurance, no points, no origination fee, purchase or refinance, and loan amounts up to $647,000. Now, there are some application requirements. It must be a single-family home, 1 unit, primary residence, and have a minimum 640 credit score. The program only applies to certain neighborhoods, so you have to call to find out if you qualify. So call Scott Fitzgerald at 813-294-7595 or email him at scott@amstampa.com. Now, even if you don't qualify for that program, Scott will shop your loan around, get you the best rates, and won't charge you the huge upfront fees. And if you've had issues with your bank calling you back, Scott will return calls immediately, or at least the same day. 813-294-7595 or email him, scott@amstampa.com. Scott Fitzgerald, MLS 386722, American Mortgage Services, 1000 North Ashley Drive, Suite 1020, Tampa, Florida. Well, it's that time of year to renew or shop your health insurance provider, and you can get great health insurance for $20, $30, $50 a month. Just call 888-325-06 to help navigate the health insurance marketplace. 1 out of 3 people in Florida are uncovered because they think they can't afford it. Not true. I made the call a couple of years ago, and they helped me get Blue Cross Blue Shield coverage, Florida Blue, for just $20 a month. Last year, it went up to $49. Oh, well. It all depends on your income and your family situation. It's a free call, 888-325-0605. They will ask for some income information. So if you have your tax returns available, that will be great, but you don't need it. They'll just answer some simple questions, and the highly trained reps will do the work for you to find out what your subsidy will be. 888-325-0605. And if you have a plan through your employer, you may be able to get it cheaper. It's a free call, so find out, folks. This has been a lifesaver for me and saved me thousands of dollars over the last few years, and you can choose your plan. It's a no-brainer. Find out. Make the free call. 888-325-0605. Get covered like me and thousands of others. 888-325-0605. Oh, 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 Merry Christmas. Santa Claus here for the Gold and Diamond Source. All right, it's JP. The holidays are the best time for engagements, right? And where better to get that special ring than the Gold and Diamond Source? They have the largest selection of engagement rings in the country, a jewelry superstore with 30 times the inventory of any normal jeweler. So avoid all the mall madness and the parking and all that BS and stay local, right? With the Gold and Diamond Source, Julie and Steve Weintraub are the family jewelers, and they'll treat you like family. And of course, they do so many great things in the community. I was just at their Hands Across the Bay, a charity event. So many people stepped up to give money for these women that have been victims of domestic abuse. It is something to behold when these women come forward and talk about what Julie and Steve have done for them. And the Golden Diamond Source funds Hands Across the Bay, and so many other great companies jump in. That's what it's all about, community, right? So let's keep it local for the holidays. If you want a perfect gift for the holidays, you should check out the unique and beautiful handcrafted jewelry from the Emilique and Julieve collections that feature fashion-forward gold, diamond, and gemstone jewelry. And don't forget, for the holidays only, 3 to 5 year interest-free financing. It's a no-brainer for the holidays. It's the Golden Diamond Source, 3800 Almerton Road, always online at thegoldendiamondsource.com.
Pure sports. JP is back on.
Welcome back.
FanStream Sports.
All right, welcome back to the JP Peterson Show on this very somber. It's Tuesday, right? I get confused because of all the holidays. After what happened on Monday Night Football last night, let's bring in our good friend TJ Reeves, Bucs sideline guy who has covered many football games, been on the sideline for many football games, and I was reading some of the first. Good morning to you. Happy New Year, my friend.
Good morning, my friend. It's good to be with you on all subjects, including this. This is the most important thing, what we're about to talk about first. Yeah. But please tell me we circle back to the Bucs being in the playoffs and kind of cheer things up towards the end of the show. We'll do that, but go ahead. You lead.
We definitely will, because I want to. You come on here and it's positive TJ Tuesday. When you come, absolutely. We do enough bitching and moaning on the other part of the show. We got to have some positivity.
One aside, I've been with you for like 3 or 4 months, and I kept quoting Dick Van Patten, who young Nick Geddes knows nothing about with 8 is enough. I kept saying 8's going to be enough. 8 is enough. 8 was enough, baby, and the Buccaneers got there. Continue on, brother.
So, yeah, I know you've been on the field for many player injuries, but we could tell pretty close to, it was clearly evident early on that this was something completely different. What was your take on watching that?
So I had gotten home. I worked the ReliaQuest Bowl yesterday, local radio.
Did a great job, by the way.
Thank you. Got done with that. I got some food last night. Again, I keep sharing this with you, and I'm going to keep it light as much as I possibly can. This is a serious thing, but I want to keep it light with you. So the wife, the twins, and the in-laws are on day 4 of the 7-day cruise. They're gone. I'm a bachelor. It's me and the dog. I think we may have shared this at some point. You saw one of the twins for her Christmas present last Wednesday night before they went on the cruise. Everybody's going on the cruise, and Dad is working and in charge of the dog. Nick, let this be a quick lesson for you about later in life when you think about kids and animals. This is what awaits you later on in married life, parenthood, where everybody else goes off, you're working, and you're in charge of supposedly their pet. I digress. So anyway, I get home last night. I'm watching the end of the Rose Bowl. I'm doing some other stuff. I've got the game still on. I've got the first quarter of the game on. In true honesty, I have a fantasy football interest because I'm about to win my championship game and my opponent has Jamar Chase. So I'm watching whenever Cincinnati has the ball because as long as Jamar Chase didn't score like 5 touchdowns in the game, I'm good. As long as he didn't go berserk, I'm good. So I'm obviously paying attention. I did not see the injury when it happened. I saw them go to commercial, and I saw something on social media real quick because I was looking on my phone. Prayers for Damar Hamlin. I'm like, okay, was it a neck injury? What happened? They come back from the break, and they showed it. And it's chilling. It's chilling because when I saw him stand up after the tackle, and he didn't kind of wobble or shake his head like a concussion, and he simply fell back, my immediate thought was, that's bad. That's big trouble. And you saw the reaction of everybody around him in that moment or two when they came back from the commercial, that this was not good. I can't add to the hundreds of thousands of words and opinions that have been going on. We all know that it's awful. It's horrible. I'll just add this. The heroes that were on the field, the paramedics last night from the Bills staff, the Bengals staff, and the Cincinnati paramedics that saved his life. We can't talk enough about that. They saved his life on the field last night with what happened. So
you could
again,
you could talk about the response, by the league or whatever, but something else that we should say is the league makes sure that there are more than enough very qualified people to take care of these, and they run through these simulations before the season. They spend a lot of time and money and resources making sure that these players have the best medical care possible if something were to happen. And we saw that go into effect last night, and they saved his life. I mean, the guy. Period.
And perfect example at Raymond James Stadium. And I don't know if this was the case for the ReliaQuest Bowl, but for Buccaneer games, there are multiple ambulances. There are 4 or 5 of them on standby, not just for players on the field, but people in the stands when things happen and they've got to be rushed out. And I'm pretty sure at the ReliaQuest Bowl, they had 2 or 3 ambulances standing by. And so those people are heroes for what they were able to do. And okay, so you asked me to relate to this, and I can relate it several different ways. And one of them you may have talked about. Forgive me, I've not been able to hear your show today, but the Chris Sims situation in 2006 that we both covered. Now, the difference with the Buccaneer quarterback, he was injured early in the game, but we didn't really know that because he kept playing in the game. He had been hit below his right breast, his right ribs, on a throw, and we didn't really know how bad he was hurt. He didn't come out of the game. He kept playing, didn't have an injury status. We now know all of the details. This is years later that he got evaluated at halftime. They didn't diagnose it correctly. They gave him IVs. It was a hot September day. He came back out to play, but Chris was bleeding internally, literally. Bleeding internally while playing the game with a ruptured spleen. So you and I were covering this game. You ended up on national TV on NBC. Were you on the NBC Nightly News? I think you were on NBC.
I was on halftime of Sunday Night Football.
Yes.
With about 20 million people watching.
Okay. Because they went live to you. They went
getting IFB return from Bob Costas as he was talking to me.
How about that?
And I got a 2-second delay on a network broadcast, but we pulled it off.
And so you were not unlike those ESPN reporters last night outside the hospital with Damar Hamlin. So you were standing right there with Chris Sims because this became a much more serious situation after the game. And I know Rick Stroud was talking about this on his podcast this morning, and I still remember that locker room. I don't know if you came into that locker room. They lost the game. That was Keyshawn Johnson's return with the Carolina Panthers, and he had scored right away in the game. So there's a bunch of different subplots. And the first thing is I was told Chris is not available and he's not going to be available. And he's getting checked out. And not only was getting checked out, he was getting rushed to the hospital. And here again, those attending physicians at St. Joseph's Hospital acted quickly in the emergency room. And it's no joke. Chris has talked about this. They saved his life. He was probably within about 15 to 30 minutes of being in full cardiac arrest. Thank God they saved his life. You were there. You were covering it. I'm watching you. You want another quick? I'm here to liven it up. All right. You want another quick story?
Well, before you move on, I will say this, that, yeah, that was, and I'd kind of forgotten about that because Chris wasn't taken off the field. It wasn't a situation where he was down on the field and he was taken off afterwards. And we had no idea.
So he was right in front of me. All right. Picture this. It's like 115 degree down on the field September day. It is bloody hot. He is right in front of me, like late in the third quarter, and he went down on a knee and he tried to stand back up, and we now know what he was dealing with. And he went back down on a knee, and the doctors came out to him, and I could see him, and he was the color of the white jersey he was wearing. Yeah. So it was spooky, and I was reporting that. But again, we didn't know how serious it was. But I want to lighten it up for 1 second. So the Bucs lost that game, and they dropped to like 0-3. So I took my phone. We didn't have kids at that point, and I said to my wife, we're going to watch something else tonight right now. I don't even want to talk about this or deal with this because I got the coaches show tomorrow. Let's do something else. We had been watching the Jack Bauer, Kiefer Sutherland series 24, the first season of it.
Show.
Here we go. We are watching the final episode of season 1 of 24. And I already know what happens, and my wife doesn't know what happens, which the ultimate twist in that, I'm going to ruin it for anybody, but this is 20 years later almost.
Don't worry about it.
The ultimate twist is that Jack's partner, female, is the double agent, and she has murdered Jack's wife, the hostage, at the very end of season 1. In the final episode, in the final 2 minutes, we reveal that after all of this, it's Jack's partner, his female partner at CTU, who's killed his wife. All right.
Yeah.
So we are building to that. I know that's coming while we're watching the DVD. My phone is on a stool away from where we are, and it will not stop ringing, and it will not stop buzzing because of the Chris Sims stuff. And I'm like, I'm not answering it because we're watching this to watch the reveal. So we get done, and JP, I've got like 35 text messages and voicemails. Text messages were not that big of a deal back in 06.
Yeah.
And I watched you first on that halftime at Football Night, and I'm like, holy crap, he is in intensive care at the hospital.
Yeah.
That's what happened. So, but to your point, we didn't know that at the time. We didn't know that in that situation. Back to last night, they knew immediately, horrifically. And my buddy Sal Capaccio, I know you referenced him. Sal's been on the radio this morning. Sal was on the sideline Buffalo Bills radio last night, and he had a couple of interesting takes, which is I wasn't seeing everything you were seeing and hearing on TV because, again, you're on the sideline. He goes, I'm watching guys' reactions, and they're horrified, and I knew it was bad. He goes, but I could not really walk up and get in between all of them on the field because they had it surrounded to see just how bad it was. And then people are coming over and telling me it's CPR. They're concerned that he's dying on the field. So Sal was relating all of that. And then it just became a bizarre circumstance. Obviously, you've covered it where they're standing around. Are we going to play? Okay, let's go to the locker room. We're standing around. Are we going to play? And ultimately they made the right decision. I think we're all in agreement. Suspend the game. You don't need to resume the game. There have been other incidents where they have resumed the game. And it's scary stuff. And it's a traumatic thing to have to deal with. And I don't know what the league is going to do. My thought from the cheap seats here is they're probably going to call the game a tie. Nobody asked me, but if you call the game a tie, then nobody's improved by winning. Nobody took a loss, and we play out the final weekend of the season, and we just leave it at that. Again, nobody asked me, but I think that's a good solution. I don't know what your thought is on that, but
my thought was that there's a lot at stake here for and none of it compares to a guy's life. So just don't come at me with that. But as with everything else and other businesses that are, people risk their lives to do every day.
That's right.
These things happen and you have to go on. The business has to go on and business has to go on. So
let's talk about this reality. I can give you insight. All right. So I travel all the time with the team, and you know that. These are things that are planned out months in advance on what hotel are you staying in, for how long, how many rooms do you need, charter flight, when does it come, when does it go? We sit here now at almost noon on Tuesday. I'm only saying hypothetically. Hypothetically, if you wanted to say, okay, let's try to play the game back in Cincinnati, that is a nightmare to try to get the Bills back there. That's not going to happen tonight. Are you playing it tomorrow night? I just don't see how you logistically work all that out.
Well, let me throw this out at you and tell me what you think. And you can poke holes in it, please.
No, go ahead.
Just throwing it out there. So, we have the week before the Super Bowl. That's the dead week, right? The 2 week off. The Bucks played without a dead week, and we won a Super Bowl. Nobody,
right?
That was fine. You can do it without a week off. It's possible. Most of the reason that is because of marketing, getting all the things in place, promotion, all that stuff. So let's get rid of that week and just bump up the playoffs another week, and then that now off week play this game. If you have week 18, and if the Chiefs win, then this is not going to affect the number 1 seed, which I think is the biggest thing that it needs to be decided in this whole deal, right? So if the Chiefs win, the outcome of this game is almost meaningless in terms of seeding.
Well, no, hang on. So the Chiefs right now are tied with the Bills. So the Bills were in position last night to win, and because they had beaten the Chiefs head-to-head, they would have been the number 1 seed had they won the game. So playing this completely out, it is still important for Buffalo to be the number 1 seed at some point, and they had the advantage going into last night.
But if Buffalo loses next week,
correct,
and the Chiefs win out, the
Chiefs have 1 game left, and they would, yes, depending on what they do with this game. Go ahead with your theory.
So what I'm saying is if Bills lose next week in week 18,
correct,
which given the circumstances is not correct, and Chiefs win, and the Chiefs will have locked up the number 1 seed, correct?
Correct.
I believe that's
under that scenario. That's correct.
So you play week 18 because first of all, these players are in no position to play this week at all. They're in no position to travel. They're in no position to play. And then they have to play week 18. What are you going to play tomorrow? And then they got to play again on Sunday? Come on. That's crazy. That's bananas. So just eat up the off week for the Super Bowl, push everything back so you don't change the date of the Super Bowl. And then in the week off in between, you play this game if you have to. If you don't, then you just have a dead week and everybody just kind of gets their crap together here because of this. And if God forbid this young man were to pass, the grieving process can happen.
Of course.
We can deal with all that. And then
so on that point, we don't know right now how serious, but we believe as we sit here at almost noon Eastern time live that he has survived and hopefully will survive. But that's another horrible variable that if he's not alive, then are the Bills even playing this weekend? And when do they play again? So let's hope for the best. Let's hope for the best. I believe the simplest thing, again, I love your theory. You're out there. This is what Sports Talk Radio and TV and what we do now, opinions. Right. The theory is good, but it's mayhem in practicality to move everything around with all the dates. You can do it if you're the NFL. I think the simpler thing is just call that game last night a tie. And in that case, nobody helped themselves with a win, but nobody took a loss. And now let it play out this weekend because Buffalo is playing a game still for the number 1 seed, like you mentioned. They have New England playing hard against them because New England has to win to make the playoffs for sure. You have Cincinnati who's trying to lock up a spot. I believe the tie for the Bengals would give them the North. That would lock up the division. As it stands right now, had they lost that game and Baltimore beats them this weekend, then Baltimore would win the division. So that's the only variable there for the Bengals, and the Ravens might be screaming a little bit competition-wise, not a lot. Hey, the tie eliminates us from winning the division. Now we're just a wild card team. And then Kansas City is the other part of that with 13 wins, and they're playing on Saturday. So I think, again, they didn't ask me. I just thought that. I've thought that. I've talked to other people. I've talked to league people. I've talked to Buccaneer people in the last 16 hours. What about a tie? What about calling it a tie? Let's see what the NFL does on that. But again, we circle back to none of this is more important than Damar Hamlin and the loss of life. And two more great things. I mean, he's got his charity, his toy drive. Have you seen it's up over $3.5 million in donations now? A charity that was looking to raise a few $1,000s is now up over $3.5 million. Faith in humanity restored somewhat there.
By the way, I don't know if this young man's ever going to be able to play again, but I'm okay with that money going to him and his family. I'm okay with that.
Sure.
Buy a few toys. Yeah.
And you have to believe the Bills and the league will do whatever they can to take care of him as well. But you're right. But the toy, that's amazing. It's amazing what they've done. And that fan base in Buffalo is unreal in rallying around their own and rallying around others. It's incredible what they do. So this will all play out and the fun and games will resume at some point. We don't know when that is.
All right. And speaking of which, let's not just gloss over what happened the other day.
Yes. I know you have to leave shortly, but I'm showing the TV audience BUCCANEERS. Go Bucks, my friend. It just does say Tampa Bay. True.
But I picked Carolina to win this game. I didn't see a way that the Bucks were going to win this game.
You were looking good early, 14-0, my friend.
I will gladly eat my hat on this one. Absolutely. Mea culpa, whatever you need from me. And it was a hell of a performance from Tom Brady, who stood in there. The offensive line gave him time to look downfield. He took the time. He danced back there instead of getting rid of the ball, waited for some stuff to develop, and damned if he didn't drop some dime on Mikens. And the defense come up big late. I thought it was a gutsy performance, a hell of a performance. Kudos to the fans. That's as loud as I've heard it in Raymond James for a long, long time. Tremendous, tremendous game, tremendous win.
Well, and you got to give him credit because there have been doubts, questions we've been talking about on this show. Is Father Time catching up? I think we have the answer on the arm strength right now. Good Lord. With laying it out to Mike Evans. And you're right. They had to have it. He hung in the pocket a little longer. And they made the plays. And this is, it's not been pretty. It's been ugly for a lot of it. But this is a team, I will keep saying this on FanStream JP. How do you count this team out? How do you count that man out in a home playoff game with what you've seen so far? If he is upright and healthy, look out Dallas Cowboys or maybe slight chance Philadelphia Eagles in 2 weeks. I'm just glad. I know you got to go in just a second. I'm just glad we're talking about the playoffs. We're talking about a division win. You got there. Again, I keep saying this. You heard me on the Nothing But Bucks podcast say this. They're not asking, how did you win those games and by how much? They're just asking, did you? And the Buccaneers won 2 enormous games. Yes, against teams below 500, but they won 2 enormous games to win in Arizona and Carolina, and 8's enough. 8's enough, baby. You're in the playoffs.
All right, my friend, the Nothing But Bucks podcast is
Yes.
out. I listened to it. It's fantastic. If you want to relive that great performance with all the sound and
lots of Gene screaming, Mike Evans, Mike Evans. Soak it in.
It's so good, man. Go check it out on his podcast. You can get it on the TJ Reeves Twitter site. I've retweeted it, I believe. So
yes, sir.
It's all out there. Easy to find. Thank you, partner. Appreciate your time.
Hey, always good to be with you. Again, we'll go through whatever this is with Atlanta, like a pseudo preseason game. I pledge to be with you next week because next week we're then talking about the playoffs. So I will be here with you. Happy New Year, boys. Good to be with you.
Can't wait. Thanks, partner. What a day. What a day it's been. And again, our prayers going out to Damar Hamlin, and he's in good shape. And as we heard from Chris Lugo earlier, who's been in these situations with military people, CPR situations. You get him to the hospital in this situation, chances are really good that he's going to survive. So they got his heartbeat back. He didn't lose a lot of blood, as Jordan Gamillion, one of our first responders that listens, pointed out earlier. So all things being equal, and there's a great chance that this young man's going to survive, and that's the best news of all. But we'll see what happens. No official update yet, so let's make sure we keep praying for him. All right, our thanks to Chris Lugo, who joined us from Bay Area Modern Medical Center earlier with his really great insight. Our thanks to TJ Reeves. Our thanks to you guys for checking in. As always, if you missed anything, just download the app, FanStream Sports, tap that app, and you can listen to the whole show anytime, anywhere, in its entirety. Fast forward, reverse, do whatever you want. And so it's all there for you on the app if you'd like to listen. Also on YouTube and on Twitter and on Facebook as well. So check us out anytime, anywhere. We'll be back tomorrow with more fun information. We'll see you then.